Good morning, everybody. I'm Father Peter Kazmarek, the pastor of St. Francis Catholic Church in Green Lawn, New York, on Long Island. And a wonderful spiritual event is about to occur under the umbrella of our parish, more specifically under the umbrella of our young adult coffee house gang, coffee house ministry, and that is a pilgrimage to Medjugorje. So these next two presentations that I'm going to give are going to be concerning that little town in Bosnia where we'll be journeying to, some of the history of what's happened there, some of the further background, and what about the future? What about the future? Well, it's not easy to get young people excited about certain things today, especially when you come to religion. But I'm telling you that Medjugorje is a huge exception to that, because young people, they get over there and they get excited because they ain't seen nothing like this before. And I sort of use the colloquialism there because, after all, it is kind of appropriate, because everybody's acting very spontaneously, very authentically, really, their real selves. You know, not being embarrassed by too much self-awareness and not enough awareness of the Lord. But anyway, so we're having a pilgrimage to there, and I want to say one of the things about the background of it is that the young people themselves raised a lot of the money to send the people who are going. The young people who are going saved or earned a lot of the rest of the money. It's not a cheap place to go. You might say, well, why don't you do something else that's a cheaper pilgrimage? Go out to the island, or go to Pennsylvania or something like that. There's all kinds of things you can do, but because there's so much currency, so much contemporaneity in Medjugorje, it really is a beautiful thing if you're able to go and to experience it. Now, so the last 40 some odd years has been the assertions by the part of many, many people, first starting with the six young people who saw the Blessed Virgin Mary, or claim to, all the way now to the millions that have been coming there, that Mary is truly appearing at Medjugorje, and not only one time, not only 10, 20 times, but many hundreds and even now thousands of times. That was one of the things that got me a little skeptical about the thing in the beginning, in the 80s, when I first heard about it, because I'd never heard of any set of apparitions that went on for so long or embraced so many, so numerous. For instance, at Lourdes, there were only 18 apparitions. They were all done within 6 months, and Bernadette did not receive anything further than that. One visionary, a couple of very special miracles, 18 apparitions, a few special details that were given in response to the bishop's request, and then the opening up of the healing spring. And that was it. Now, here's the thing. Lourdes is a great shrine. Millions go there also. But in 19th century France, that would be enough to get natural attention. Today, I'm not so sure what adequate or proper attention could be given to religious subjects today, when people are drawn this way and that way, and they're constantly distracted and constantly seeking to be entertained, or the world of advertising is impinging upon them constantly. I'm not sure. It may require the thousands of apparitions and the many other things that happened at Medjugorje to get people to keep on the right database, to keep on the right focus for themselves. It may well be that Mary has to use entirely different tactics. And of course, we get some hints that Mary is not adverse to doing that when we think about the way Medjugorje has played itself out. Well, anyway, the year is 1981. The site is the little farming village of Medjugorje, which is in the Herzegovina section of Bosnia. Well, people are confused about Bosnia enough, and that's how mostly we refer to it. But when you get to Herzegovina, you're getting into real highfalutin geography and that sort of thing. But anyway, you remember the former Yugoslavia. And you remember that Yugoslavia was a kind of an artificial country. It was put together by the one man who was president of the United States and also had a faculty position on a major university. I'm talking about Woodrow Wilson, the one and only professor of history that ever was president of the United States. Well, the opportunity for Wilson to attend the Versailles Peace Conference and redraw the map of Europe after World War I and after the collapse of four empires. The Tsarist regime collapsed, the Tsar fled into hiding, the Kaiser in Germany fled to Holland, the Austrian Empire was broken up and turned into the Habsburg family had to step down, and last but not least, the Sultan himself in Istanbul had to step down. Four empires collapsed, lots of other confusion and trouble. Okay, we have a big meeting in Versailles, the great palace of Louis XIV, outside of Paris, and Woodrow Wilson, I'm sure, looked upon this as the capstone of his career. Well, he had 14 points that he would try to press the rest of the allies, the victorious allies, into adapting. We don't want to get off the beam on this or distracted, but one of them was the creation of a Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia meaning all the Slavic peoples. Well, it wasn't all the Slavic peoples, but in the Balkan area between Italy and Greece and Turkey and Russia, the Balkan area there, you had many small Slavic groups that were different from each other and yet had a certain common heritage and certain things in common also. Wilson said, let's give them an opportunity to form a modern country so they don't fight and squabble with each other for another couple of generations. Let's create this place called Yugoslavia for the Slovenes, okay, for the Serbs, for the Croats, for the Montenegrins, and a couple of the other ones, the Kosovoans, I guess if you want to call them that. All of these people get a chance. Macedonians, they'd get a chance to work together in harmony. Belgrade, the capital of Serbia, would be the capital, and we'd see what goes on. Well, Yugoslavia survived the Second World War. Hitler conquered it, but they had a fierce resistance to the Nazis and so forth. And at the end of the war, there emerges the famous figure of Marshal Tito. Marshal Tito was the leader of the Croat and Serbian underground against Hitler during the war. And then he was an atheistic communist, a convinced Marxist and all of that, and could be ruthless also. But he ultimately broke with Stalin, and there was a kind of honoring of him in Yugoslavia that was kind of like a cult of personality or that type of thing. I remember as a seminarian taking a train in the middle of winter to Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, with a couple of other seminarian friends, and we were going to visit the Croatian relatives of this other young seminarian who was in the American seminary in Rome with us at that time. And we're arriving at the train station in Zagreb in the year 1968. You have no doubt who's in charge of the old Yugoslavia. There were 30-foot murals on either end of the railroad station in the big waiting room. Marshal Tito himself, looking out for everybody and basically announcing that, who's the key man here in Yugoslavia? Well, guess that, folks. It's me. Well, it was a communist regime. And basically the idea was to try to stamp out religion by discouraging people, from making it difficult and discouraging people from going to Mass, by harassing people who wanted to express their faith in anything more than just simply going to Mass and keeping quiet about it. And it wasn't a very happy place, because the Croats, many of them were loyal and fierce Roman Catholics and were yearning for the days of freedom of religion once again. Now, a little bit of history is helpful, because Medjugorje has had a hard time gaining official approval. Bernadette had only wait 2 years for the bishop there in southern France to approve the apparitions. Well, it was simple. There was only a few apparitions, only a few things conveyed, and only one visionary. A lot easier, less complicated than Medjugorje. But the bottom line, of course, is that there was a background of tension between the secular clergy and the Franciscan order in Herzegovina. Herzegovina is part of Bosnia. It's the Catholic part of Bosnia, where the people are ethnically Croatian, speak pretty much Croatian, and are Roman Catholic. Okay, Serbia is Orthodox. They received their Christianity in the early Middle Ages through Constantinople, through the Greeks in Constantinople, the Byzantines. Okay, so their liturgy looks more like a Russian Orthodox liturgy or a Greek Orthodox liturgy than it looks like our Mass. All right, the Croats received their religion, their Catholic faith, from Rome. So they're Latin Christians, and there's the fault line there between the East and the West, coming right down in the boundaries between Serbia and Croatia and Herzegovina and Bosnia, and all of it coming right down. On the coastline of the Adriatic, the Adriatic is the arm of the Mediterranean Sea that separates Yugoslavia from Italy. There's the city of Split, a very ancient city, and the emperor, the Roman emperor at that time, was trying to reunify and revivify his empire, built a palace complex there. Okay, and again, that's separate. Then he split the Roman Empire at that time. He put an Augustus or Caesar in charge of one half, and another one in charge of the other half, and he presided right from the center. So that you see there's a fault line here, That comes from, and it really manifested itself in the Civil War in Yugoslavia and all of that once again. Okay, so you see how it's interesting. So why did Mary go there? Why did Mary pick these kids? Well, let's say why she went there. Well, there were crossroads of East and West. Also, 10 years to the date that Mary first appeared in her first apparition, or the first time that the young people saw the shining light. They couldn't make out Mary too clearly at the first time. That was the feast of John the Baptist, the Nativity, the birth of John the Baptist. 10 years to the day, a civil war, what they thought could never happen, broke out in Yugoslavia. All right, and it was a brutal and very ugly civil war, certainly equaling to some of the things we're seeing now in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and some of the things that are happening there really we never thought could happen, but now we have to suffer the fact that we were wrong, that there's a heavy price to pay for some of these historical things. We thought we had beaten down communism, but we find that totalitarianism rears its ugly head in many, many different ways. So anyway, Mary came for various complex reasons. First of all, one of the first things when the children asked her, why did you come? Why did you come? She said, I have found some faith here. I have found some faith. And she certainly did, because the people of Medjugorje and the people of Croatia in general made great sacrifices on behalf of Medjugorje to protect the children, to protect the veracity of the reporting that went on, and basically to see that the thing survived so that God's will could be done in some special way, and that it would be talked about in a positive way. That the people in the Medjugorje, the village, and the surrounding area were really tremendous in doing that. But anyway, so there were these 6 teenagers. Yaakov, the youngest, was only 10. He couldn't count as a teenager. But they were teenagers, and it was a little farming village. They were harvesting tobacco at the time. It's interesting that when Mary came, the tobacco went out, and that had been there for decades and decades. And in came the vineyards, which you can walk through some of the vineyards in Medjugorje now. In any event, Mary comes because she finds some faith. There are these 6 walking along. There's the bright light, a woman of dazzling beauty beckoning the children to come up the hill a little higher. And they're so frightened. They look for all this, then they run away. But they have a sense of being drawn back. And of course, then they see the beautiful lady again. Little by little, they're talking to her, and the group has solidified down into the 6. And then we come to the second phase, how the parish priest gets involved. The day of the first appearances, Father Jozo, who's one of the heroes of the early days of Medjugorje, was out of town. So he didn't get back to Medjugorje until 2 or 3 days later. But then he was able to protect the children, get them to come to the church and have the apparitions in the church. It soon became apparent that Mary wanted to meet at 20 to 6. And that's where the famous abbreviation 206 comes from. That she wanted this to be a regular thing. And so there was back and forth with the authorities. The authorities tried to close the church, and we have a special little story to tell our pilgrims how Mama, we always refer to her just as Mama, the older lady who's the mistress of the house where we stayed. You see, in the beginning, the communists tried to stamp it out by not allowing any facilities to be built for pilgrims. Pilgrims were coming, even after just a few weeks, by the thousands. It didn't take long. It didn't take long at all. But the communists were trying to prevent any further growth by not allowing anything to be built, by way of a hotel or a restaurant or a new building or something. So people were taking them, pilgrims, into their homes. And many people then, when somebody was looking the other way, built a little addition on, and they were able to accommodate pilgrims during the first 10 years, 15 years of Medjugorje. After that, the hotels kind of took over. And I hope to be able to take our group to see Mama's house, to get a little sense of what old Medjugorje was like before the apparitions, what it was like in the very early days. Okay, we're getting to the point. Okay. Anyway, what did Mary come for? What did Mary? Well, she came to call people to prayer, to call people to conversion, to revitalize their sacramental life, the love of God's word and the scripture, the love of confession, and basically a revival, a renewal of the church in Medjugorje, in Herzegovina, in Bosnia, and ultimately out to the 4 corners of the world. So we're going to be heading over there on the 29th of July, and we invite you all to just keep your ear to the ground a little bit. We'll keep telling you what's going on, what we experience there, and we want you to know that we have high expectations, and things are going to work out wonderfully.